Since 2018, Blair County formally charged its very first human trafficking case. Since then, we formally charged just a handful of them. People are still very surprised to know that people are trafficked here in Blair County every single day. These few cases have just been the tip of the iceberg. And while it may look different than it does in movies, it is just as terrifying, just as traumatic, and just as difficult to detect. And sickeningly enough, there's a high demand for people to pay to have sex with children and adolescents. I find it prudent that in a time lacking even the smallest of common ground, we come together in consensus to protect our children and those most vulnerable in our community. We should all take a stand against human trafficking, take a stand against children being given to adults for sex in exchange for anything. What we know to be true, because we've heard it from survivors here in Blair County, is that Blair County is a prime spot for human trafficking, being located in between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia on the I-99 corridor in very close proximity to State College. What we know to be true is that at every single one of those home Penn State football games, victims are trafficked through those games for people that are attending the event. Many who live here in Blair County are just barely scraping by. Some have to choose sometimes between buying food and paying their rent. Food insecurity and housing instability are some of the largest vulnerabilities exploited by these traffickers. Substance use, isolation, and a lack of strong family structure are just a few others. Traffickers seek out these vulnerabilities. They look for people who will fall through the cracks in our community, for those who no one else may be looking at. They prey on these vulnerabilities and force them to have sex, perform sexual acts in exchange for food, drugs, and money. These are very real needs that people have, and it's a very real reality that people believe that they may need to sell themselves, their brothers or sisters, their children, or someone else entirely to make these ends meet. No matter the need, this is trafficking. This is what trafficking looks like in rural communities. We're glad you're here today, joining us to take a stand against human trafficking and to let traffickers and would-be traffickers know that we will not tolerate it in our county. To let victims and survivors know that we are here for them. There is help and they do not have to stay. All too often, these victims are forced, frauded, and colluded into believing that they could not leave. Sometimes so manipulated to a point that they see themselves as willing participants rather than victims. There is never an equal partnership here. The trafficker always has more to gain than the victim ever could. We hope that our red sand, which will stay here for days to come, will help people to see that there is a way out and that Blair County can be a safe place for them. If you haven't already, I invite all of you to grab some red sand here and start to fill in the gaps on the sidewalk as a way to represent those who have fallen through the cracks in our community.